Chapter 1. The Last Bastion. The Terran outpost stood as a solitary beacon of hope in the vast expanse of space, the last remnant of humanity's once thriving civilization. Commander Aria Vance gazed out at the distant stars from the observation deck, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and trepidation. The outpost had been hastily constructed in the wake of the Zenthian invasion, a desperate attempt to preserve what little remained of Earth's population. The Zenthians, a technologically advanced alien race, had swept through the galaxy like a plague, consuming every inhabited world in their path. Aria turned away from the window as the alarms blared throughout the station. "Commander Vance to the bridge!" a voice crackled over the intercom. She raced through the corridors, her heart pounding in her chest. As she burst onto the bridge, the crew was already in a state of controlled chaos. "Report!" Aria barked, taking her place at the command console. "Zenthian ships detected on the long-range scanners, Commander," Lieutenant Jace Ryder replied, his fingers flying across the tactical display. "They'll be within weapons range in less than an hour." Aria gritted her teeth. They had known this day would come, but she had hoped for more time to prepare. The outpost was woefully understaffed and under-equipped, a mere shadow of the once mighty Terran fleet. "Sound the evacuation alert," she ordered. "We need to get as many civilians to the escape pods as possible." As the bridge crew scrambled to carry out her orders, Aria studied the approaching enemy fleet. The Zenthian ships were massive, dwarfing the outpost's meager defenses. She knew they stood little chance of survival, but she was determined to buy as much time as possible for the evacuees. "Arm all weapon systems and prepare for battle," Aria commanded, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her stomach. The crew worked with grim efficiency, their faces etched with the knowledge that this could be their final stand. Aria took a deep breath, steeling herself for the fight to come. As the Zenthian ships drew closer, the Terran outpost stood alone against the darkness, a fragile bastion of humanity in a hostile universe. The fate of their species hung in the balance, and Aria knew that failure was not an option. The battle for humanity's survival had begun. Chapter 2. The Zenthian Onslaught. As the Zenthian ships closed in on the Terran outpost, Commander Aria Vance felt a cold sweat trickle down her spine. The enemy fleet was far larger than she had anticipated, with dozens of sleek, menacing vessels bearing down on their position. "Evasive maneuvers!" Aria shouted, gripping the console as the outpost shuddered under the impact of the first enemy salvos. The outpost's shields held, but Aria knew they couldn't withstand a sustained assault. She watched helplessly as the Zenthian ships swarmed around them, their advanced weapons cutting through the outpost's defenses like a hot knife through butter. "Commander, we've lost contact with the evacuation shuttles," Lieutenant Ryder called out, his voice tinged with panic. Aria's heart sank. The civilians were their top priority, and now they were defenseless against the Zenthian onslaught. She forced herself to remain calm, knowing that the crew was looking to her for guidance. "Redirect all available power to the shields," she ordered, "and target their lead ship with everything we've got." The outpost's weapon systems came to life, launching a barrage of missiles and energy beams at the Zenthian flagship. For a moment, Aria dared to hope that they might stand a chance. But the Zenthian ship absorbed the attack with barely a scratch, its advanced shielding technology rendering the outpost's weapons all but useless. Aria watched in horror as the enemy vessel returned fire, its massive cannon tearing through the outpost's hull like tissue paper. Explosions rocked the bridge, and Aria was thrown from her chair by the force of the impact. She struggled to her feet, her ears ringing and her vision blurred. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, someone shouted. "We're losing life support." Aria knew they were running out of time. The outpost was being torn apart around them, and the Zenthians showed no signs of letting up. She had to make a decision, and fast. Prepare the self-destruct sequence, she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the chaos of the bridge. Lieutenant Ryder looked at her in shock. But, Commander, what about the evacuees? Arya closed her eyes, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. We have to buy them as much time as we can, she said. It's the only way. As the crew scrambled to carry out her orders, Arya took one last look at the observation deck, the stars now obscured by the smoke and debris of the battle. She thought of the countless lives that had been lost in the Zenthian invasion, and the billions more that hung in the balance. With a heavy heart, she turned back to the console and initiated the self-destruct sequence. The outpost shuddered and groaned as the countdown began, the seconds ticking away like the last grains of sand in an hourglass. Arya closed her eyes and whispered a silent prayer for the evacuees, hoping that their sacrifice would not be in vain. As the countdown reached 0, the Terran outpost erupted in a blinding flash of light, taking the Zenthian fleet with it into oblivion. In the silence that followed, the fate of humanity hung in the balance, the last embers of hope flickering in the darkness of space. Chapter 3. A Glimmer of Hope. Amidst the debris and the eerie silence that followed the destruction of the Terran outpost, a small, battered shuttle emerged from the shadows. Inside, Commander Arya Vance and a handful of survivors huddled together, their faces etched with grief and exhaustion. Arya had managed to escape the outpost's destruction at the last moment, herding as many crew members as she could into the emergency shuttle. But their relief was short-lived as they realized the extent of the damage inflicted upon humanity's last stronghold. "What do we do now, Commander?" asked a young ensign, his voice trembling. Arya took a deep breath, her mind racing. They had no weapons, no allies, and no place to go. The Zenthians had won, and humanity's fate seemed sealed. But in that moment of despair, a flicker of determination ignited within her. "We survive," she said firmly. "We find a way to keep fighting, to keep hope alive." She turned to the shuttle's navigator, a grizzled veteran named Maximilian. "Plot a course for the Epsilon Eridani system," she ordered. "There's an old Terran research station there, hidden deep within the asteroid belt." Maximilian raised an eyebrow. "The Eridani station? But that place has been abandoned for decades." "Exactly," Arya replied, "which means the Zenthians might not know about it. It's our best chance to regroup and figure out our next move." As the shuttle set course for the distant system, Arya couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She scanned the surrounding space, her eyes straining to pierce the darkness. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her attention. A small, unidentified craft was approaching their position, its intentions unknown. Arya's heart raced as she prepared for the worst, wondering if the Zenthians had already found them. But as the craft drew closer, she realized it was not of Zenthian design. Its hull was smooth and organic-looking, with pulsing lights that seemed to communicate in a language all their own. "Unidentified craft, this is Commander Arya Vance of the Terran Outpost," she transmitted. "Please identify yourself." There was a moment of silence, then a voice crackled over the comm system. "Greetings, Commander Vance. I am Ambassador Zoran of the Galactic Alliance. We come in peace." Arya's eyes widened in surprise. The Galactic Alliance was a league of advanced civilizations that had long been rumored to exist, but had never made contact with humanity. She had always dismissed them as a myth, a desperate hope for a galaxy that seemed increasingly hostile. "Ambassador Zoran," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady, "what brings you to this part of space?" "We have been monitoring the Zenthian invasion for some time," Zoran said, "and we have seen the bravery and resilience of your people. We believe that humanity has a role to play in the future of this galaxy, and we are here to offer our assistance." Arya's heart leaped with sudden hope. Perhaps they were not as alone as they had thought. Perhaps there was still a chance, however small, to turn the tide of this war. As the two ships docked together, Arya couldn't help but wonder what the future held. The road ahead would be long and perilous, and there were no guarantees of success. But for the first time since the fall of the Terran Outpost, she allowed herself to believe that humanity's story was not yet over. Chapter 4. A New Alliance. The interior of the Galactic Alliance vessel was unlike anything Arya had ever seen. The walls seemed to pulse with a soft, organic light, and the air was filled with a faint, melodic hum. As she and her crew were led through the ship's winding corridors, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the advanced technology that surrounded them. Ambassador Zoran greeted them warmly as they entered a spacious meeting room. He was tall and slender, with pale, iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to shine with an inner light. "Welcome, friends from Earth," he said, his voice calm and soothing. "We have much to discuss." Arya stepped forward, her posture straight and her gaze unwavering. "Thank you for your hospitality, Ambassador," she said. "But with all due respect, what exactly is the Galactic Alliance, and why have you chosen to contact us now?" Zoran smiled softly. "The Galactic Alliance is a coalition of peaceful civilizations from across the stars," he explained. "We have watched humanity's progress for centuries, marveling at your resilience and adaptability in the face of adversity. When the Zenthians began their invasion, we knew we could not stand idly by." He gestured to a large holographic display that materialized in the center of the room. It showed a map of the galaxy, with the Zenthian-controlled territories marked in red. "The Zenthians are a formidable foe," Zoran continued. "Their technology is far more advanced than our own, and their conquest of the galaxy has been swift and merciless. But we believe that with the help of the Galactic Alliance, humanity may yet have a chance to turn the tide of this war." Arya studied the map intently, her mind racing with possibilities. "What kind of help are you offering?" she asked. "We can provide you with advanced weapons and technology," Zoran replied, "as well as intelligence on Zenthian troop movements and supply lines. But more than that, we offer you our friendship and our support. You are not alone in this fight, Commander Vance." Arya felt a lump form in her throat. After so much loss and despair, the idea of having allies in this war was almost too much to bear. "Thank you," she said softly. "We will gladly accept your help." As the meeting continued, plans were made and strategies were discussed. The survivors of the Terran Outpost would be taken to a secret Galactic Alliance base, where they would be trained in the use of the new technology and integrated into the Alliance's military structure. But even as hope began to take root in Arya's heart, she couldn't shake the feeling that the road ahead would be long and difficult. The Zenthians were a powerful and ruthless enemy, and there was no guarantee of victory. As the meeting drew to a close, Zoran placed a hand on Arya's shoulder. "Have faith, Commander," he said. "The universe has a way of balancing itself out. The Zenthians may be strong, but they are not invincible. Together, we will find a way to stop them and restore peace to the galaxy." Arya nodded, a newfound determination burning in her eyes. She knew that the fight was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that victory was possible. With the help of the Galactic Alliance, humanity would rise from the ashes of the Terran Outpost and take back what was rightfully theirs. Chapter 5. The Journey Begins. The journey to the secret Galactic Alliance base was unlike anything Arya and her crew had ever experienced. The sleek, silver ship glided through the stars with a grace and speed that defied belief, its advanced propulsion systems leaving even the most advanced Terran vessels in the dust. As they traveled deeper into space, Arya found herself drawn to the ship's observation deck, where she could gaze out at the endless expanse of the universe. It was a humbling sight, reminding her of just how small and insignificant humanity's struggles must seem in the grand scheme of things. But even as she marveled at the beauty of the cosmos, Arya couldn't shake the sense of unease that had settled in the pit of her stomach. The Zenthians were still out there, and she knew that they would stop at nothing to complete their conquest of the galaxy. As if sensing her thoughts, Ambassador Zoran appeared at her side, his iridescent eyes fixed on the stars. "It's a lot to take in, isn't it?" he said softly. "The vastness of the universe, the endless possibilities that lie ahead." Arya nodded, her gaze never leaving the observation window. "It's incredible," she murmured, "but it's also terrifying. How can we hope to stand against an enemy as powerful as the Zenthians?" Zoran smiled, his expression one of quiet confidence. "We have something they don't," he replied. "We have unity, and we have hope. The Galactic Alliance has stood against countless threats over the centuries, and we have always found a way to prevail. With your help, we will do so again." Arya turned to face him, her eyes searching his for any hint of doubt or deception, but all she saw was a steadfast determination, a belief in the rightness of their cause that was both inspiring and humbling. "I hope you're right," she said at last, "because if we fail, there won't be anything left to fight for." The rest of the journey passed in a blur of activity, as the survivors of the Terran Outpost were given a crash course in the advanced technology of the Galactic Alliance. The weapons they were shown were unlike anything they had ever seen, capable of delivering devastating strikes with pinpoint accuracy from incredible distances. But even as they marveled at the destructive power at their fingertips, Arya and her crew never lost sight of their true goal. They were not fighting for conquest or glory, but for the survival of their species, for the right to carve out a place for themselves in a hostile universe. As the ship finally emerged from hyperspace and the secret base came into view, Arya felt a sense of purpose settle over her like a cloak. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but with the help of their new allies, they would find a way to overcome the odds and emerge victorious. And as she stepped off the ship and onto the surface of the alien world that would be their new home, Arya knew that she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey had only just begun, but already she could feel the flames of hope and determination burning brightly within her, guiding her towards a brighter future for all of humanity. Chapter 6. The Secret Base. As the Galactic Alliance ship descended onto the surface of the alien planet, Arya and her crew gazed in awe at the sprawling complex before them. The secret base was a marvel of engineering, with gleaming spires and sleek, curving structures that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Ambassador Zoran led them through the winding corridors of the base, pointing out the various facilities and amenities that would be at their disposal. There were training rooms, equipped with the latest in combat simulation technology, research labs filled with cutting-edge equipment, and even recreational areas where the survivors could unwind and recharge. But what struck Arya most was the sense of purpose and determination that seemed to permeate every corner of the base. Everywhere she looked, she saw beings of all shapes and sizes working together towards a common goal, united in their desire to stand against the Zenthian threat. As they entered the main command center, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of intimidation wash over her. The room was vast, with towering holographic displays and a dizzying array of control panels and consoles. But what really caught her attention was the figure standing at the center of it all. He was tall and imposing, with a presence that seemed to fill the entire room. His skin was a deep, rich blue, and his eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. As he turned to face them, Arya felt a shiver run down her spine. "Welcome to the heart of the Galactic Alliance," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "I am Commander Zaxxon, and it is my honor to lead the fight against the Zenthian scourge." Arya stepped forward, her chin held high. "Commander Vance of the Terran Outpost," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her stomach. We're here to do whatever it takes to stop the Zenthians and ensure the survival of our people. Zaxxon nodded, his expression one of grim determination. And we are grateful for your assistance, he replied. The road ahead will not be easy, but together we will find a way to overcome the odds and emerge victorious. Over the next few days, Arya and her crew threw themselves into their training with a passion and intensity that surprised even them. They pushed themselves to their limits and beyond, honing their skills and mastering the advanced technology of the Galactic Alliance. But even as they grew stronger and more confident, Arya couldn't shake the sense of unease that had settled over her like a dark cloud. She knew that the Zenthians were still out there, plotting their next move, and she feared that even with the help of the Galactic Alliance, they might not be able to stop them. It was during one particularly grueling training session that Zaxxon approached her, his expression one of grave concern. "Commander Vance," he said softly, pulling her aside. "I'm afraid we have received some troubling intelligence. The Zenthians are massing their forces for a final assault on the heart of the Galactic Alliance. If they succeed, all hope will be lost." Arya felt a chill run down her spine, but she refused to let her fear show on her face. "Then we'll just have to stop them," she said, her voice filled with a steely determination. "Whatever it takes, we'll find a way to end this once and for all." Zaxxon nodded, a glimmer of hope flickering in his eyes. "I believe in you, Commander Vance," he said softly. "Together, we will face this final battle and emerge victorious. For the sake of all the beings in the galaxy, we must not fail." And as Arya returned to her training, she knew that the fate of the universe rested on their shoulders. The final battle was upon them, and she would stop at nothing to ensure that humanity and the Galactic Alliance emerged triumphant. Chapter 7. The Final Preparations. As the news of the impending Zenthian assault spread throughout the base, a sense of urgency and determination filled the air. Arya and her crew redoubled their efforts, pushing themselves to the brink of exhaustion as they trained and prepared for the battle to come. Commander Zaxxon worked tirelessly to coordinate the Galactic Alliance's forces, drawing up battle plans and strategies that would give them the best chance of success. He met with Arya regularly, seeking her input and expertise as they fine-tuned their approach. "The Zenthians are a formidable foe," Zaxxon warned, his voice grave. "They have technology and weapons far beyond anything we've ever encountered, but we have something they don't: the strength of unity and the will to fight for what's right." Arya nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. "We'll give them everything we've got," she vowed. "We'll show them what happens when they mess with the Galactic Alliance." As the days ticked by, the tension in the base grew palpable. Every waking moment was spent in preparation, from running combat simulations to studying the latest intelligence reports on Zenthian movements. Despite the gravity of the situation, Arya found herself growing closer to her crew and the other members of the Galactic Alliance. They shared meals together, swapped stories of their homeworlds, and forged bonds that would last a lifetime. One evening, as Arya sat in the base's observation deck, gazing out at the stars, Ambassador Zoran approached her. "You've come a long way, Commander Vance," he said softly, taking a seat beside her. "When we first met, I saw the weight of the universe on your shoulders, but now I see a leader ready to take on any challenge." Arya smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for the ambassador's unwavering support. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "Without any of you. The Galactic Alliance has given us hope when we had none." Zoran nodded, his eyes distant. "Hope is a powerful thing," he mused. "It's what keeps us going, even in the darkest of times. And right now, the galaxy needs hope more than ever." As the final preparations were made, Arya found herself standing before the assembled forces of the Galactic Alliance. Ships of every size and shape filled the hangar bay, their crews ready and waiting for the order to deploy. Commander Zaxxon stood beside her, his voice booming through the cavernous space. "Today, we stand united against a common enemy," he declared. "Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for every being in the galaxy. Today, we show the Zenthians the true strength of the Galactic Alliance." A roar of approval went up from the gathered crew, their voices echoing off the walls. Arya felt a surge of pride and determination wash over her, knowing that they were ready for whatever lay ahead. As she boarded her ship, Arya took one last look around the base that had become her home. She knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that the odds were stacked against them, but she also knew that they had something the Zenthians could never take away: hope, unity, and the unbreakable spirit of those who fought for what was right. With a deep breath, Arya settled into her seat, her hands gripping the controls. "All right, everyone," she said, her voice steady and strong. "Let's go save the galaxy." And with that, the ships of the Galactic Alliance roared to life, streaking out into the vast expanse of space, ready to face the final battle and the fate of the universe itself. Chapter 8. The Final Battle. The ships of the Galactic Alliance tore through the void of space, their engines roaring with determined purpose. Arya sat at the helm of her vessel, her eyes fixed on the view screen as they approached the coordinates where the Zenthian fleet had been detected. As they drew closer, the true scope of the enemy's forces came into view. Hundreds of ships, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything the Galactic Alliance had ever seen, filled the screen. For a moment, Arya felt a flicker of doubt, wondering how they could possibly hope to prevail against such overwhelming odds. But then she remembered the faces of her crew, the determination in their eyes, and the bonds they had forged in the face of adversity. She thought of the countless beings across the galaxy who were counting on them, who needed them to stand firm in the face of this threat. "This is it," she said, her voice steady and clear over the comm. "This is what we've been training for. Remember your assignments, trust in each other, and never give up. We're the galaxy's last hope." As one, the ships of the Galactic Alliance surged forward, their weapons blazing to life as they engaged the Zenthian fleet. The battle was joined, and the fate of the universe hung in the balance. Arya's ship darted and weaved through the chaos, her crew working in perfect synchronicity as they targeted the enemy's weak points and coordinated with their allies. All around them, ships exploded in bursts of flame and debris, the din of battle filling the void. But even as they fought with everything they had, it quickly became clear that the Zenthians had the upper hand. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, and their numbers seemingly endless. One by one, the ships of the Galactic Alliance fell, until only a handful remained. Arya gritted her teeth, refusing to give in to despair. "We need a new plan," she said, her mind racing. "We can't beat them head-on, but maybe we can outsmart them." An idea formed in her mind, a desperate gamble that just might work. She opened a secure channel to Commander Zaxxon, outlining her plan in quick, urgent tones. Zaxxon's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim but determined. "It's a risk," he said, "but it's the only chance we've got. I'll rally the remaining ships and buy you the time you need." Arya nodded, her heart pounding as she set her plan in motion. She ordered her crew to fall back, drawing the Zenthian ships away from the main battle and towards a nearby nebula. As they approached the swirling clouds of gas and dust, Arya's ship suddenly went dark, all power diverted to the cloaking device. The Zenthian ships, caught off guard, swept past them, disappearing into the nebula. Arya's fingers flew over the controls, activating the secret weapon they had been working on. A massive, self-replicating nanobot swarm designed to infiltrate and disable enemy ships from within. With a silent prayer, she unleashed the swarm into the nebula, watching as it disappeared into the clouds. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. And then, one by one, the Zenthian ships began to falter, their systems shutting down as the nanobots did their work. Explosions rippled through the nebula, the once mighty fleet reduced to drifting hulks in a matter of minutes. Arya let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, tears of relief stinging her eyes. They had done it. Against all odds, they had defeated the Zenthians and saved the galaxy. As the remaining ships of the Galactic Alliance regrouped, battered but victorious, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at what they had accomplished. They had stood together in the face of annihilation, and through their unity and determination, they had prevailed. There would be time later for celebrations and rebuilding. For now, Arya simply savored the moment, the knowledge that they had made a difference, that they had given the galaxy a chance to live and thrive. And as the ships of the Galactic Alliance turned towards home, Arya knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united by the bonds they had forged and the hope they had fought so hard to protect. Chapter 9. The Aftermath. As the Galactic Alliance ships emerged from the nebula, the full extent of their victory became apparent. The once formidable Zenthian fleet lay in ruins, scattered across the void like broken toys. Cheers erupted across the comm channels as the realization of their triumph sank in. Arya leaned back in her chair, exhaustion and relief washing over her in equal measure. She had pushed herself to the brink, both physically and mentally, to make this moment possible. And yet, even as the weight of their achievement settled upon her, she knew that their work was far from over. The Galactic Alliance had won the battle, but the war was not yet won. The Zenthians, though defeated here, would not give up so easily. They would regroup, rebuild, and come back stronger than ever. The only way to ensure lasting peace was to strike at the heart of their empire, to dismantle their power structure from within. As if sensing her thoughts, Ambassador Zoran's face appeared on the view screen. "Congratulations, Commander Vance," he said, his voice warm with pride. "You and your crew have accomplished the impossible. The Galactic Alliance owes you a debt that can never be repaid." Arya shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "We did what had to be done," she said. "But this is only the beginning. The Zenthians will be back, and we need to be ready." Zoran nodded, his expression growing serious. "You're right, of course. We must press our advantage while we still can. The Galactic Alliance is already mobilizing for a full-scale invasion of Zenthian space. We will need every ship, every soldier, to see this through to the end." Arya felt a surge of determination wash over her. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to let this chance slip away. "My crew and I are ready," she said, her voice steady and clear. "We'll fight alongside you until the Zenthian threat is eliminated once and for all." As the Galactic Alliance ship set course for the heart of Zenthian territory, Arya took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. From the ashes of the Terran Outpost, they had risen to become the galaxy's last hope, a beacon of unity and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. She thought of the bonds she had forged with her crew, the trust and loyalty that had seen them through their darkest hours. She thought of the countless beings across the galaxy who were counting on them, who needed them to succeed. And with a renewed sense of purpose, Arya set her sights on the battles to come, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For she knew that, together, they could overcome anything, and that the future of the galaxy rested in their hands. As the stars streaked past the view screen, Arya allowed herself a moment of hope, a flicker of optimism in the face of the unknown. They had come this far, and they would not fail now. The Galactic Alliance would prevail, and peace would reign once more. And so, with hearts full of courage and minds sharp with determination, the heroes of the Galactic Alliance pressed onward, ready to face the final battle for the fate of the universe. Chapter 10. The Final Push. The Galactic Alliance fleet, now bolstered by reinforcements from across the galaxy, surged forward into Zenthian space. The once mighty Zenthian Empire, still reeling from their defeat in the nebula, scrambled to mount a defense. But the Alliance had the upper hand, and they intended to press their advantage. Arya stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the stars streak past the viewscreen. The weight of the coming battle hung heavy on her shoulders, but she refused to let it show. Her crew needed her to be strong, to lead them through this final trial. As they drew closer to the Zenthian homeworld, the enemy's resistance intensified. Zenthian ships, their hulls bristling with advanced weaponry, swarmed the Alliance fleet from all sides. The space between the stars lit up with the fire of 1,000 suns as the two forces clashed. Arya's ship shuddered under the onslaught, its shields straining to keep the enemy's weapons at bay. But she refused to falter, her hands flying over the controls as she guided her crew through the chaos. "Commander Vance, we're receiving a transmission from the Zenthian flagship," her communications officer reported, his voice tense with urgency. Arya's eyes narrowed. "Put it through!" The viewscreen flickered, and the image of a Zenthian commander appeared, his features twisted with hatred and desperation. "Surrender now," he snarled, "and we may spare your lives." Arya let out a harsh laugh. "You're in no position to make demands," she said, her voice cold and unyielding. "Your empire is crumbling, and the Galactic Alliance will not rest until every last one of you is brought to justice." The Zenthian commander's face contorted with rage, but before he could reply, Arya cut the transmission. She had no time for empty threats, not when the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The battle raged on, the Zenthian homeworld growing larger in the view screen with each passing moment. Arya knew that this was their chance, their one opportunity to strike at the heart of the enemy's power and end this war once and for all. "All ships, concentrate fire on the Zenthian capital," she ordered, her voice ringing out across the comm channels. "We end this now." As one, the Galactic Alliance fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing with the fire of 1,000 suns. The Zenthian defenses crumbled under the onslaught, their ships falling from the sky like burning meteors. And then, with a final triumphant roar, the Alliance ships broke through the Zenthian lines and descended upon the capital. The once proud towers of the Zenthian Empire toppled and burned, the streets running red with the blood of the fallen. Arya watched it all from the bridge of her ship, her heart pounding with a mixture of triumph and sorrow. They had won, but at what cost? How many lives had been lost? How many worlds left shattered in the wake of this terrible conflict? But even as the weight of it all threatened to crush her, Arya felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Ambassador Zoran standing beside her, his eyes shining with pride and understanding. "You did it, Arya," he said softly. "You saved us all." And as the Galactic Alliance ships rose from the ashes of the Zenthian homeworld, Arya allowed herself a small smile. They had fought for peace, for the future of the galaxy, and now, at long last, they had achieved it. The war was over, and a new era had begun. Chapter 11. A New Dawn. As the dust settled on the Zenthian homeworld, Arya stood on the bridge of her ship, gazing out at the devastation before her. The once mighty Zenthian capital lay in ruins, its towering spires reduced to rubble and ash. The air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke and the cries of the wounded. But amidst the chaos and destruction, there was also a sense of hope. The war was finally over, and the galaxy was free from the tyranny of the Zenthian Empire. The Galactic Alliance had emerged victorious, thanks in no small part to Arya's leadership and the bravery of her crew. As the Alliance ships began to land on the surface of the planet, Arya turned to her crew. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with pride and exhaustion. "We won." The crew erupted in cheers and applause, their faces beaming with the knowledge that they had been part of something truly historic. Arya couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of accomplishment that she had never known before. But even as they celebrated their victory, Arya knew that there was still much work to be done. The Zenthian Empire may have been defeated, but there were still pockets of resistance scattered throughout the galaxy. And the wounds of war would take time to heal, both for the countless worlds that had been caught in the crossfire and for the soldiers who had fought so bravely. As Arya stepped off her ship and onto the surface of the Zenthian homeworld, she was greeted by a sea of cheering crowds. The people of the galaxy had come to celebrate their newfound freedom and to thank the heroes who had made it possible. Arya made her way through the throngs of people, shaking hands and accepting hugs from grateful citizens. She felt a sense of humility wash over her, knowing that she had played a part in something so much bigger than herself. As she reached the center of the crowd, Arya found herself face to face with Ambassador Zoran once again. The old diplomat's eyes were filled with tears of joy, and he embraced Arya like a long-lost friend. "I knew you could do it," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I always believed in you, Arya." Arya felt a lump form in her throat as she returned the embrace. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." As the celebration continued around them, Arya knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges to face and obstacles to overcome. But she also knew that the Galactic Alliance was stronger than ever, and that together they could build a better future for all. And so, as the sun began to set on the Zenthian homeworld, Arya looked out at the horizon with a sense of hope and determination. A new dawn was breaking, and she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. For the first time in a long time, Arya allowed herself to dream of a galaxy at peace, where all beings could live in harmony and prosperity. And she knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would never stop fighting for that dream. Chapter 12. A New Era. As the celebrations on the Zenthian homeworld began to wind down, Arya found herself standing on a balcony overlooking the city. The once mighty capital was now a shadow of its former self, but even amidst the rubble and debris, there were signs of life and hope. In the streets below, Arya could see teams of volunteers working to clear away the wreckage and rebuild what had been lost. There were medics tending to the wounded, and engineers working to restore power and infrastructure. It was a daunting task, but Arya knew that with the help of the Galactic Alliance, the people of the Zenthian homeworld would persevere. As she stood there, lost in thought, Arya heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Ambassador Zoran approaching, a smile on his weathered face. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" he said, gesturing to the city below. "A testament to the resilience of life and the power of hope." Arya nodded, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over her. "We've come so far," she said, "but there's still so much work to be done." Zoran placed a hand on Arya's shoulder, his eyes twinkling with wisdom and understanding. "True," he said, "but we must also take a moment to celebrate our victories and to honor those who made them possible." Arya knew he was right. The war had taken a toll on everyone, and it was important to acknowledge the sacrifices that had been made. She thought of her crew, and of the countless soldiers and civilians who had given their lives in the fight against the Zenthian Empire. "I couldn't have done it without them," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "My crew, the Alliance, everyone who fought by our side, they're the real heroes." Zoran smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "And they couldn't have done it without you, Arya," he said. "You were the one who brought us all together, who gave us hope when all seemed lost. You are a true leader, and the galaxy is lucky to have you." Arya felt a rush of gratitude and humility wash over her. She knew that she had played a part in the victory, but she also knew that it had been a team effort. Everyone had contributed, from the lowliest soldier to the highest-ranking general. As the sun began to set over the Zenthian homeworld, Arya and Zoran made their way back inside. There was still much to be done, but for now, they could take a moment to rest and reflect. In the days and weeks that followed, Arya worked tirelessly to help rebuild the galaxy. She met with leaders from across the Alliance, forging new alliances and strengthening old ones. She oversaw the distribution of aid and resources to the worlds that had been hit hardest by the war, and she worked to ensure that the lessons of the past were never forgotten. And through it all, Arya never lost sight of her ultimate goal, a galaxy at peace, where all beings could live in harmony and prosperity. She knew that it would not be easy, and that there would be setbacks and challenges along the way. But she also knew that with the help of her friends and allies, anything was possible. As Arya looked out at the stars, she felt a sense of hope and determination wash over her. A new era was dawning, and she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. With a smile on her face and a fire in her heart, Arya set out to build a better future for all.